Hi guys, good afternoon everyone. I hope everyone can see my screen. I just need a confirmation that everyone can see my screen and can hear me.
Yeah, I guess we can.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is how our training is going to go. This is our workflow. So we are going to talk about different features in our application, and we'll be seeing about different technologies that can be integrated with our application. So I want to ensure that it goes in a correct flow. So I did this small presentation which explains like what, why, and how. So this is how our workflow goes. Like first, I'll be talking about presentation. I'll explain you what is about, what is that, and why we need in that place. And the third one is how we can integrate, how we can use it in our application, how we can configure it in the other end. So I'll be giving you an overview, and I have done this predefined, but I'll show you how that can be done as in step-by-step process. We'll be going through all of them. So without any further delay, we'll jump into the topics. So this is the agenda for us. So I'm going to discuss about the enterprise service management first, which is our evolution, of course. And after that, we'll be slightly going into the user management, and we will be discussing about how we can bring in the users, how we can provide them authentication, and how we can provide them right authorization, right? Because not everyone is allowed to see all the data that is present in the application. So we'll be talking about the right authentication and the right authorization that needs to be provided, and we will see how that can be achieved through our the application service displays. And as Jay said, we'll be using the enterprise version of service displays. Those who haven't seen this before, this is how it looks. So we do have all the modules in place where it says request, problems, changes, all the modules. And today in this timings, in the first half of the session, we'll be discussing about the enterprise service management and also the user management. So at the beginning, and also I want to reiterate the rule that has been said by Jay, that if you have any questions, you can stop me right there and you can ask me how it is done. Yeah. So yeah, this is the enterprise service management. So this is how primarily, like before a year, if you ask me, all the settings and the configurations which is present in our application can be managed from one place, which is the admin page. Because there were no different instances, and there were no common data which needs to be split across the instance or spread across the instance. So we had all the configurations under this admin panel. So there will be an admin user, more than one. You can have more than one admin user as well. So you can have multiple admins, and they will have access to all the modules or all the configurations that is present in the application, and they can simply go ahead and configure it right from the admin page. So since we have evolved to the enterprise service management, we have added a new button here. You can see this beautiful blue button, which is ESM directory. So we have split a few of the settings, the configurations between this admin panel and this ESM directory. So we do have most of the common things, like for example, you can have a same user common across all the instance. So we have users managed right here in this page, enterprise service. Service management directory. So with this, you can manage all the common configurations or the common settings that can be done in our application. So let me show you how different instances will look, or how we can create a different instances. So here I have some few instances that I have created, where you can go ahead and see that I have an IT instance, HR instance, and facilities, and also I have second IT instance. So similarly, we can go ahead and have multiple instances created. So I'll show you quickly how we can go ahead and create a multiple instance and what are the parameters that are involved in here. So our goal is to have multiple instances within one application. So I just want to clarify that we do not have any separate database for each and every instances. So all of them are managed in one database and one application. So all we have is the interface where we can simply go ahead and click on new instance to create a new instance. So I'm just going to call this as a new instance, or else we can call it as a travel instance. So as soon as I have given a name, I can see that there are types of instances that we can use. We do have a facility instance and also the HR instance. So these are the two predefined instance that we have here. So what I mean by predefined instance, there will be predefined values present in there. For example, you might have a different categories in an help desk. For example, if you are managing the IT instance, you would have a hardware department, you would have a authentication IAM department. So similarly, even in an organization, you will have a travel department, facility department, and also you will have multiple departments. So when it comes to facility departments, it is going to have a predefined values for that particular uh, instance. So let me show you that. So here I have a facility instance created. This was created earlier, predefined. So if I go into category, I can see there are few predefined categories, and not only categories and subcategories, we do have also templates predefined. So this is the difference between the instances, the different types of instances that we have in right here. So since we have only the facility instance and the human resource instance, I'm just going to create a blank instance. So what do you mean by blank instance? It will have no predefined values. It will be like a blank instance with no values on it. All we have to do is we have to build it from the scratch. So let me show you how it is done. So I'm going to assign an owner here. I'm just going to assign the administrator as the owner, and you have an option to choose the license. So since I have the standard and professional edition, I'm just going to choose the standard edition right here. So if you have gone through a document or if you have gone through the application earlier, can anyone tell me how much time it takes to create a new instance? So let's calculate it. We have it like started at 352. Does anyone have an idea about how much time it takes to create an instance? Okay, no problem. I'll show
Around
you
10
how that.
minutes.
I'm sorry.
Around 10 minutes.
Uh, that is too much. Actually, it would take less than 3 minutes, literally less than 3 minutes to create the whole instance and construct it. So you can see that we have started at 352 and it is finished. It is about to be 353. And you see that the instances has been created. And of course, you can go ahead and select any image if you would like. Right now, I'm going to leave it blank. And you can see the status. So this is one thing which I would like to mention. When it comes to the status, we do have four different types of status. I have classified them here accordingly. So we have, as soon as I have created an instance, as soon as I have assigned an owner to that, the status has been set to new. And we do have a status like pre-production. So how it is done, we can go ahead and see that. So right now I am the administrator, so I am the owner of the instance. Of course, you can have multiple owner, but since this is the new instance and no users will be imported in that, I have only one owner and the status is new, and I have a standard license assigned to that. I'm going into the instance. So since I am the administrator, it let me log in and it let me access the instance, and I can see all the admin configurations which is related to this particular instance, which I can go ahead and configure here. So I'm just going to go back to the ESM directory and I can show you the status which has been done. So as soon as I have accessed the instance once, the status has been converted to the pre-production. So pre-production is nothing but the status in which you will do all the configurations. So for example, if you have a owner, if the owner wants to set up all the data into, or if he wants to bring in all the users into that particular instance, he can simply go ahead and do it in the pre-production status. So yes, as soon as once you have accessed the instance, once you have logged into the instance, you can go ahead and configure it. For example, since it's a blank instance, I can show you the category which is really empty. So I'm just going to create a category like travel desk, just for an example.
Hi Agassi, Pooja here. I
Yes,
do
please.
have a question there.
Yeah.
Suppose we have created instance with the human resource or something. The other option was there in the from the type. So
Mhm.
it creates instance with the predefined categories, right?
Yeah.
So from where does these categories get picked up for those kind of instances?
Yes, it will be predefined in the database. Like as soon as you install the application, and if you are adding a HR instance, these categories will be displayed. This is the like hard coding.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so these
Yeah,
will be the
thank you.
default everywhere. It is not like we are going to import it somewhere. But if you would like, you can go ahead and add a separate category as well. But when I mean predefined, it will be hard coded and it will be there already.
Okay, so will it be not be editable? Those
Uh,
predefined one?
of course, you can go ahead and edit it. You can go
Okay,
ahead and
okay,
edit it, or else you can go ahead and create a new service category.
okay. And if at all we want to make um,
Mhm.
deactive few of the categories among them, then is it possible to do that?
Yes, of
So,
course, you can do that as well.
okay, okay,
You see the delete option, little option here. You can go
okay,
ahead and delete it.
okay. Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. I hope that answers Pooja's question. So
Yes.
yeah, we were in the pre-production state. Thank you, Pooja, by the way. And yes, in the status, we have a pre-production state because I have accessed the instances. I'm in the process of setting up the instance. So since I've created a blank instance, I have to set each and every configurations manually. There will be no predefined data in there. So by doing that, once after, let's assume I have finished all the configurations and I'm ready to deploy, what a owner can do is he can simply go into the service disk instance and he can go ahead and change the status to production. So once this has been set to production, this will be visible to all the users who's been imported into the application. I'll show how to import the users into the application in a bit, but you can the owner has to, what I mean here is the owner has to change the status to the production automatic, I mean manually. He has to change the production manually, and if you would like to retire or delete that particular instance, if he doesn't want to use it, he can simply go ahead and change it to the retire status, and he can go ahead and delete it. So that is, these are the different status that is involved in the service, I mean services plus instances while creating it. So you'll have to ensure that you'll have to know when to use which status, like you cannot you cannot go ahead and create an instance and then put it in a production status, because it is going to be visible for all the users who is present in the instance. So since I said we can have, also I wanted to show how we can have multiple owners in the instance. So if you go under this, you can have all the, you'll have list of users who is present right in here in the common place in the ESM directory. You can simply go ahead and choose if you would like to have multiple user, and you can simply update it to bring it to the live. And without any further delay, I'm just going to show you how we can have users imported into the application. So as if you have noticed, if I go to the ESM directory, I see the all the users who's been imported into the application. But if you would like to have them for, like, because you might not want all the users in every instance. For example, if you are having an internal finance instance, you do not want to access, you do not want to provide access for all the users that is present in the organization. So for that, we do have an option where we can go ahead and import users based on the category or on the site. So let's assume you have a finance department set up in Chennai, and you would want only the Chennai users to access it, or if you want only the users who belong to that particular department to access it, you can go ahead and do that right away. So this is where we import users into the application. So we do have options where you want you can select users to import based on the site or department. Let me quickly show you how it will look like. So here you can choose a different site, like these are the sites that will be imported. I'll show you how sites can be imported in a bit, but here is where the sites will be, all the sites will be listed, and you can simply choose and click on import to bring in all the users, so whichever you like. For example, as I said, if you would like to import only the users who belong to finance department, I'm simply going to choose the criteria as finance. I'm not sure if I have a finance criteria. Let me quickly check. Yeah, I do have a finance. So I can go ahead and add this criteria and click on import, which is going to import all the users who has the department set to finance. Or else if I would like to bring in all the users, so since this is being the travel instance, I would want to bring all the users who belong to the organization. So in that case, I can simply go ahead and choose all the users, and I can click on import, so that whoever is present or imported into the application as of now, you can see all the users imported into the application, right? So I can go ahead and bring them directly into the application. If I do not want to split them by criteria, if I want to bring up all of them into the instance, I can do that as well as I did earlier. So, and also there are a few things that you should notice, which I will show you on while importing the users from in different ways. So if you have noticed, you would have seen this little crown icon next to each and every user. I mean, like few of the users. So could anyone guess what is that? I'm just showing. Yeah, I'll just hover over it, and it says organization admin. So does anyone have any idea about what it could be? Could anyone make a guess? Okay. Mhm. Management. So Kunal says it is management. So to be specific, it is management of the different instances. So you might not want all the users to to have access to this instance, right? So in that scenario, if you would like to have any user should have, if you think if the user should have access to this particular page where it says service displays instances, where it holds all the instance that is present in the application, you have to enable this little option right here. So this will help you to enable the access to this particular service desk instance page. So yes, that is how we do it. That is the little icon, the crown icon, which is present right there. Yeah, shows how to access or install this application. Okay, so that is not included in the agenda, but let me show you quick overview. So here I have a server. So it is basically like any other application. So Anil asked that how to install this particular application. Anil, can I explain this in later part if we have time for today after finishing all the topics in the agenda?
Yes,
If you don't
Agassi.
mind. Yeah, thank you, Anand. Thank you. So I'll cover that, of course, if I have more time. So I just do not want to get diverted from the agenda which we have, so that we might miss the important topics which we need to discuss. And for overview, I would say that it is just like any other application. You can just download the exe if it is a Windows server. If it is a Linux server, you are going to download the bin file and you are going to install it in the application. And by default, we do have a database called Postgres. Will be configuring the Postgres by default, and we can also switch to MS SQL if you would like. So that is the quick overview. Maybe I'll cover it in the later part if I have more time, or we will be added in the last day. So yes, without further delay, let's jump into the. Yeah.
I have a question. So when you
Yeah.
define the owner of an instance,
Mhm.
um, so are they the administrator of the instance or like something else? Like when we're defining someone as the owner, so does that mean they get an admin right over that particular instance?
Yes, you are correct, because you see that this is being the administrator. If he goes into the instance, he should be able to set up all the configurations, right?
Okay, so is it something that you also have a global admin who has access to all the instances, or do we have to specifically mention the admin for each of the instances?
Okay, so the admin access, which I mean the organization admin, will have access to all this
All
place. Oh yeah, okay. So, but
okay.
when it comes to the owner, only owner can make the configuration. So the org admin can be just a user, you know.
Mm.
But org admin, I mean, org admin is someone who sees this particular page,
Mm-hmm.
and if you would like to have access to that particular instance, he should be able to access, I mean, he should be the owner of this particular instance. If he's a
Okay.
org admin and he is not admin, he doesn't have admin access to this particular instance. If you go to
Mm-hmm.
instance, once he logs into that, he will only see what a user is supposed to see that.
Okay. Okay. Fine. And just one more question, Agassi, because you
Mhm.
mentioned that you can have multiple, like different users and different instances. So, for example, and you also mentioned that you can also mention the license, associated license for each instance. So, for example, we have two instances, one with professional, one with enterprise. And suppose if the same user is there in both of these instances, so will he consume two licenses in that case?
As I said, that is, I mean, like I was coming to that part. When it comes to the ESM directory, we'll be assigning or splitting license with the number of instance and the number of technicians per instance. So I can leave you the email address for the sales team. So if you like to have more information on that license part, you can go
Mhm.
ahead and reach our sales team, because we do have some classifications where, like even for the number of instances, we will define in the license in the XML. So we'll have the number of instance that particular license can hold, and the number of technicians that particular instance can have. So all that will be defined, and for the information on like how it will be split, you can go ahead and check with our sales team. I have dropped the email address in the chat.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Welcome. So yes, so that is how we will be having multiple instances, and so we have seen how to import users into that particular instance specific, by going into the instance and bringing in the users either by department or either by site information. So let's see how we can bring in the actual users into the application itself on the whole. So we do have different ways to do that, where we can go ahead and create them manually, which is not the ideal way, where we cannot have multiple users manually. But if you have a circumstance or scenario where you would like to create one particular user immediately on the application, you can go ahead and create it right away using that little new icon. You can just click on new, and it will give you the list of fields that needs to be filled in, and you can simply save it to bring in the user into the application. And the second basic way is to import from a CSV file. So let's assume you are having an organization, you are supporting an organization that has both employees and contractors. So here they are managing employees in the domain by having in the Active Directory, and they do not have the contractor information in the Active Directory as per the policy. So what they can do is they can have the user information in a CSV file. They can go ahead and have it in a CSV file or as a report, and they can simply go ahead and import that CSV file into the application. So see here I have a sample CSV file where I can show you that there are different columns. Let me quickly open the CSV file so that I can show you what exactly is in there. So here we do have the name information, the login information, and the password for that particular user. And when I mean password here, the password is the local password only for the application. So we'll talk a little bit about that when we are talking about the authentication. But in the import part, you'll have to ensure that you have this mandatory fields like display name, and the login name and the password. The rest of the fields you can go ahead and edit it and import or edit it and add it manually. But during the import, during the CSV import, you have to ensure that this display name and the login and the password is being mapped correctly. So here I have only one user added. For example, you can have number of users. For example, I'm going to call them a test user 2, and I'm going to call test user 2, and the password is going to be test 1. So since I have made some changes, I'm going to re-import it so that you will know what exactly has been done. Yeah, so here I'm importing two users, and I see that the two users have been imported successfully. So if I go and refresh the page here, am I seeing the user? Yes, I'm seeing the test user 1 and the test user 2, and they have been imported into the application successfully. This feature comes in handy when you would like to have external users, to whom the users whoever you are not maintaining in the domain, inside the domain, you can simply go ahead and import the CSV file. And for the users who are already present in the domain, you can simply go ahead and use our feature import from Active Directory. Mostly all of them have noticed this feature. So here you can simply, in most of the organizations, like in the Windows environment, in the most of the organizations, they'll be using Active Directory to bring in or the manage users in the organization. They will have they will have different attributes created, and they will have they can map it to that, and they can bring in the users directly from the Active Directory simply by integrating them. So I said that most of the common configurations or the features will be available in this page, in the ESM directory page. But when it comes to the Active Directory import, so of course you will need an authentication to access that Active Directory or the domain controller, right? So that can be configured in the primary instance. When I mean primary instance, the IT instance, which will be available by default, that is the primary instances of your application. And under that you can under that you will have an option called Windows Domain Scan. It is going to let you add the domain information into our application, and by adding the domain information you can simply bring in the users directly into the application by importing that. So let's see what are the information that needs to be given if a domain user needs to be imported. So that is a one easy thing that will be done here. So as soon as if you are installing the application freshly in a server, our application has an ability to fetch the domain name in which that particular system is configured. So you can see that there is a domain information that has been added. So this is done by our application by default whenever it has been imported, you know what I mean. So whenever, as soon as you install the application, these domain information will be added, but it will not have the login ID or the password to access the domain controller. It will just have the domain information. It will just say that this computer belongs to this domain, and if I would like to build the configuration above that, I can go ahead and do that right as well. But in my case, I have a different domain in which I need to configure my application. So I have created a new domain in our application, and here I have specified the domain name and the domain controller information, so which is nothing but my Hyper-V instance, and I need to configure the login name and the password of the account that has read access to the Active Directory information. So by default, all the users that is being created in Active Directory will have a read access, but like in few of the organizations, for security reasons, they might have hidden, they might have removed the read access in specific OUs, like the user OUs. If a particular user is not supposed to see the particular value, they would have revoked the access on that particular OU. So in that scenario, you'll have to ensure that the login name and the password which you are configuring here should have the read access to the OUs which you are trying to import it. So by now we have the domain and the domain controller information configured in here, and we have to switch back to the ESM directory to bring in the user into the application. So let's see how we can do that. So you can do it from two places, the existing place which you have already been, where you can simply click on import from AD, and these are the domain name which you have configured in the Windows domain scan, and this has been populated here with all the fields. And you can simply click on import now, so which is going to display all the OUs to which this particular account has access to. So if I select all the OUs, it is going to go ahead and go through all the OUs, parse through all the OUs, and bring in the user information to the application. So if we do the importing here, it is going to bring in all the user records. It is going to communicate with the Active Directory, and then it is going to bring in the user information. I'm just going to do it in my other instance, since I have connectivity issues between the actual instance and this. So let me go to users. Yeah, so here I have the same domain configured, and I can click on import now and start importing. So it is going to communicate with my Active Directory, and it is going to add the records to the application. So in the meantime, while it is being imported, let's assume we might have different users. The IDs has to be unique, right? We have to ensure that the users are not being added newly again and again during the every import. So what we have done here is like we do have an option to override the records. So for example, I can go ahead and import my Active Directory information based on a schedule. But if I do not want to import the users again and again or add the new records again and again. So we do override user information based on few scenarios, few criteria. I would like to let you know what are the parameters are. So primarily, it is going to check the login name which we have given and the domain name to which we have configured. So let's take this instance. We have this login name here and the domain name as Agassi. So if this matches the criteria, it is going to let me add it is going to override the information instead of being adding it as a new record. It is simply going to override the information. So let me show you a quick example. So I'm just going to add a test user here, and I'm going to give a same login name as which we had earlier. And you see this, there is a login name with same name already exists. So we have to ensure that we are not having importing the same login name, and this applies for all the ways of importing users, even through if you are importing importing from adding it manually or importing it from CSV. We have to ensure that it is not being overwritten, like this. If the same values are there, it is obviously going to override the information. You have to ensure that. So if you are creating information for the CSV, importing users information using CSV, you have to ensure that this login name is unique. All right. And we do have one more parameter which we will check during the import. We will be checking the email address. If the email address of the user is same, it is simply going to override the user information based on that. So does anyone have a question?
I guess it's Som here.
Yeah.
I guess when you say override, so in case if there is any information as part of people profile which is manually added or updated into the profile, will that also be overridden?
Yes,
Or it
as I
cannot?
said, yeah. You're correct. So as I said, it is going to simply check the login name and the user information. And if you have enabled this option, it is going to check the email address. It is going to override based on that, even if the account is created manually. So you'll have to ensure that the login ID is unique one, because we are going to use that particular login ID to log into the application. In the later part of the authentication topic, we'll be discussing about that. So the login ID has to be unique. So whatever the ways you are inputting the user, it could be like adding manually or inputting to CSV or AD or LDAP. You just have to ensure that the login ID is unique.
Okay. I mean, apart from the login ID, if there is any other parameters which is manually updated in a profile, say location information or other information which is not present in the AD part, so which is manually updated, and we want to protect it in case there is an override. So how do we do that? Because every time if the additional information is being overridden, then it will be a manual task to update it again and again. Is there
So
also
I understand that you would have a separate fields which has some values. So as I said, if the login ID matches, it is simply going to override the information. But I would like to know which field.
say, I mean, like, suppose in this section you have like job title, department name, site name, which
Uh-huh.
might not be there in AD and it might not be populated from AD. So you might have some support agent like manually updating in the profile saying, okay, this person is from this department and so forth.
Okay,
And
so in that scenario, I would suggest you to exclude. Simply you have the list of fields that will be imported from AD, and if you don't want that particular value to be imported, you can simply uncheck it. So for example, if it is job title which you do not want to overwrite, you can simply uncheck it, so that job title will not be imported at all. It will remain the same.
okay, so it actually like lists down all the fields, or it's only
So
like
these are the default fields, which the attributes which you will get from the AD, and we do have an additional field as well which you can add, and that will be populated during the import. So if you have additional fields, so if you are supporting a production environment, they might have a supervisor on the fields, and if you would like to import that information, you can import that as well. And if you do not want to import that information, you can simply uncheck it, so that that particular information will remain untouched.
Okay. And what happens in case if the user in AD is like deleted, or is like removed from the organization? What happened to the profile
Yes.
in
Yeah, we are going to talk about that in a bit after answering Krunal's question. So here Krunal has asked a question that is there any limit, maximum limit for adding users? No, Krunal, the license only applies for the technicians and not for the users. So you can add users as much as you want. There is no limit on that. So yes, so we do have some asked a good question here. So how do we handle the deleted user information? Is user domain login ID and this one is different? Not exactly. So Dhanalakshmi has asked if the user domain login from the AD is different from the domain which we have in the application. So it is actually the same. So what we are doing here is like we are configuring the AD information in our application. So here you can see we have configuring the domain controller information. So it is basically the same. We are just integrating that domain information with our application. So we are just like bringing and we are getting data from the Active Directory which you have in your domain. Is that clear, Dan? Dhanakshmi? Okay, great. So yes, so that is about bringing in the users, and as I said, you can go ahead and have additional fields as well, where you can map the fields to fields during the import, and if you do not want to import any specific value, you can simply uncheck it, and that takes us to the Active Directory page. So here we have quite a few configurations that can be done. Again, it will be under the ESM directory page because it is being managed globally. All right. So we do have an option. Let me start from the beginning. So we do have an option to set a predefined password or the random password. This is the password which is for only for the application. So do not confuse that, because since it is being in Active Directory page, it will reset the Active Directory password as well. No, it is not the case. It is only for the application password. So this is the local password for this Service Plus application. So if you want to have any temporary password for the user who is being created manually or input through the CSV, you can have a random password, and you can have a predefined password as well if you would like to have same password for users, and you can send it to them through email if during the account creation. So that is about the local authentication password, and changing that will not alter the AD password. And moving forward, so yes, here we do have the import users access. So this is the second place from where you can bring in the users from the Active Directory. As I said, you will have the domain information and the domain controller information with the authentication of the login name and password, and we do have few of the fields to import into the application. So these are the default fields, as I said earlier, and this is going to be the additional field. So if you have added any additional fields, that is going to be listed here, and you can simply go ahead and map the attribute name here. Let's say if you have the same attribute uh, um, in the AD as well, you can simply go ahead and map the attribute name, and you can enable this option. It is going to bring in the users and this particular user additional field value and import into the application. And you might have had a question, like now, like do we have to import the users every time when there is an update in the Active Directory, every time when the user is added to the Active Directory? That is not the case. We do have a schedule where you can make a schedule to import users into the application. So it is going to allow you to bring in the newly added users into the application every time whenever this schedule runs. So it is simply like you can configure it in a non-business hours as well. You just have to ensure that this application server is reachable to the Active Directory domain control, whichever we have configured in the application. So it is simply going to run in the specific time which we have given, and it is going to bring in the users whichever we are adding newly into the application. So that is about the schedule, and we come here to the part on syncing the deleted users. Like this was the Soam's question. So how do we handle the deleted users information? So basically, Soam's question was like, what will happen to the profile? But I'll explain how the user account will be considered as a deleted account and how it will be configured lately. So see here we do have an option to sync deleted users. So we do have two options, which is going to delete automatically. It is only for the users. It is not going to delete the technician's account automatically. If you would like to do it, you have to do it manually and after converting them to the users. And we do also have a manual option to delete, where you can simply go, it will list all the deleted users in the Active Directory, and you can simply go ahead and see if they can be deleted, and you can simply click select them and delete them manually if you would like. So how this is done, how this particular sync deleted option works. So as I said, we do have an option where like you can go ahead and configure the OUs. We will be populating the OUs during the import. So it is going to bring in the user information into the application, and we do have multiple OUs listed over here. So whichever the OUs, whichever the OUs that contains the user information that is not listed here. So for example, in the real time, we will be not deleting the users from the Active Directory. We will be disabling the user account. That will be the real-time practice. So what will happen, what you could do is, like, you can disable the user account, and you can set a rule or a PowerShell rule to move it to a new OU. Let's call it, like, you can have a new OU created under here saying that are disabled users, and you will have to remove that read permissions for that particular account. So let me create a quick OU here. I'm just going to create a new organization unit and call it as disabled users. The name is already in use. I'm just going to add underscore. So here we have a disabled users OU that has been added. So what I could do is I can go ahead and move all my disabled users in this particular OU, and I can simply go to properties and remove the read access for the account, and it will not be displayed. So for the which account, the account which we have configured in the Windows domain scan. So you have to ensure that the whatever the account which we have configured right in here doesn't have read access to that particular OU, so that it will not pass through that OU, and it will not see that information. Let's assume during the second scan, it is not seeing the user information that is present in the application. So it is simply going to get sync to the find that particular deleted users, and it is going to list it right here. So you can see that that is one user that has been considered as the deleted users, but because they are not found in any OUs that is present that I have imported right from here. So I can choose whether I would like to remove this particular user, and I can simply go ahead and delete it if I would like, so that by doing this account will be removed from our application. So if you have chosen the delete manually option, you can do by this way, and only the technicians will be visible here. And if you would like to, if you have chosen the delete automatically option, if that particular user is only a requester, it is going to be deleted. And how where it will be deleted, so we do have two options here: active users and deleted users. You can see all the deleted users that is present in here. So you cannot do anything to that, but this is like for audit purpose, to see how many users that has been deleted recently. So you can list all the users that has been deleted from this applications. And yeah, as I said, this is how we manage the deleted users in from the AD. We will see whether that user account is present in any of the OEs that is being listed. If it is present, we are going to consider that it is an active account. If it is not there, we are going to consider it as a disabled account, and we are going to consider that as a deleted users, and we'll be listing it right here. So, and yes, for the information, as I said, you cannot go ahead and modify anything on that. You can just go ahead and see who are the users that has been deleted. And if you re-import that users, those users will be added as a new user. Okay. And it will not change any of the information for the existing requests. So obviously we are bringing in users to create and manage requests, right? So when it comes to requests, all the information is going to be there for the closed request, but for the requests which are in progress is going to be added as like disabled users or anonymous user, so that it will consider it as a deleted user, and you can go ahead and change it manually, because of course it is in progress status. You can go ahead and change it as per your preference. And as I said, if a user is deleted once and if you're going to import it again, it will not find them as the same user. It will go ahead and import them as a new user. So you have to ensure about that. And before, if you are planning to import the user again by deleting it, you have to ensure that it has been deleted properly. Right from, you can see, you should ensure that they are being listed here, and then you can go ahead and add the users after that. So I hope that answers the question. So that's what you expected. Am I correct?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. And that is about the deleting users or syncing deleted users from the Active Directory. And we do have an authentication which we will discuss in a bit. And also, just before we leave for the break, it is almost 4:29. I don't want to utilize the time from break, so I'll just give you a heads up on this. We do have an LDAP authentication. So LDAP import. So for the environments which are using Linux, we can go ahead and have Linux environment. Like the LDAPs configured. Like we do have support different types of LDAPs, and you can simply go ahead and map the CN information and the domain controller information. It is going to reach the particular LDAP server, and then it is going to bring in the details. So just you have to ensure that before configuring this, you have to ensure that this particular LDAP server is reachable from the application server. It should be able to query this LDAP server because it is going to get the information from there, right, from the database. So all you have to do is you have to ensure that this LDAPs is configured in a reachable server. We have to ensure that there is a connectivity. So I believe for LDAP secure environment, we will be using port 636. So if you're using LDAPs in a secure environment, and of course, when I say LDAPs, it is secure LDAP secured. You have to ensure that you import the certificate, and that is about bringing in the users into the application by different ways. And so, in a nutshell, you can bring them manually, or you can import from CSV. You can go ahead and bring them from Active Directory and from the LDAP environment. So yes, so this is what I have planned to cover before the break. So since it is 1:30, 4:30, you have been sitting here continuously for 2 hours. I just want you guys to go for a 15 minutes of break and come back at 4:45. That would be good. 15 minutes break will be good for everyone.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Okay, great. So for temporarily, I'll be stopping. I'll stop the sharing, and once we have joined back, I'll go ahead and start the sharing again, and we'll go from there. Right?
Sure, I guess. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll meet at 4:45. Hi guys, I hope most of you are back. You can just drop in chat, or else you can say hi once if you're back, so that we'll know that you guys are back. Okay, we do have two, three. Great. We will wait for 15, like half of the attendees. If half of the attendees are back, we'll go ahead and start the training. We do have 8 right now. I'm not seeing Som here. Som is here. Yes. 9. So we have 10 till now. 5 more to go. 11. Great. Great. 2 more to go. Once after 2 pings, I believe we can start. Or else, is it good to start right now? We have 13 entries as of now who has pinged in chat.
Like I say, I think we can start as of now and let him
Okay,
join.
so okay, thank you so much for the information. So yes, without any further delay, we can go into our access management. So topic after break is going to be very interesting and very knowledgeable. Okay, so I believe already Krunal has started with a question. So I would like to start by answering that question. So Krunal asked that how can we give different access to different technician or team? So, Kunal, my question for you is when you mean different technician or different team, do they belong to different domain or the same domain? I hope Kunal is with us. Okay, so I think Kunal is not connected. So what I'll answer here in the chat as well once after explaining this. So Kunal's question is he would like to know if different technicians or different teams can have different types of access. So as I said, if they belong to different domain, we can import different domain, configure different domain users, and we can import them into the application. Yes, Kunal. So I had a question like if in your question you said that you have different different access for different technician on different team. So I would like to know if they belong to different domain as well, or they are just different team, like a different category or different support group, something like that. Okay, but anyways, this is going to be the answer for you, Kunal. So if they belong to same domain, then we can have two ways of authentication enabled at the same time. One is local authentication or the AD authentication. Else, you can have single sign-on. Right? So the local authentication is always going to be there. You can choose between the AD authentication or a single sign-on by SAML or single sign-on by ADSSO. So if they belong to same domain, it is either the local password or the domain password or any other authentication, whichever you have configured. So within a domain for different groups and different teams, we cannot have separate type of authentication since it is being managed globally. So as you can see, we are managing the passwords and the user informations globally. So it is not specific to any department or it is not specific to any groups. I hope that answers your question. And we will be, yes, of course, we will be talking about in detail about the different ways of authentication. Does that answer your question, Kunal? If we update any attribute telephone number directly in the application for any user, will that make sense? No, Dhanalakshmi. So Dhanalakshmi has a question like if we make any changes in the application level, will that reflect in the Active Directory? So the answer is no, because whatever configurations which you are doing in the application level is only going to impact that particular application. It is like, as I said, we are just going to have read access for the account which we are configuring, right? So once only with the read access, how can we modify the AD information? So obviously no. Changing the values in machine, I mean, application will not reflect in the Active Directory directly. So I hope that answers Dan Lakshmi's question. Okay, great. So yes, moving forward, so we are going to start with the different ways of authentication that is possible in our application. So of course, we did have a discussion about the local authentication password, where we can go ahead and have a random password and a predefined password. So I would like to show how a login page looks like, because without login page, application is, I mean, authentication is nothing, right? So you can see the username and the password and also the different domains which we have configured in our application. So this is what I told for the Kunal's question. So if you have different domain users, you can go ahead and import users from different domain and you can choose that appropriate domain to log into the application. Else, if you would like to use the local authentication password, it's very simple. You're just going to enter the username. Username is nothing but the login name. Login name is going to act as the username here, and the password is the local password which we have configured. So it is pretty simple. If you are sending the local password to the users, you're going to choose local authentication. If you're going to use any different domain authentication, you are going to choose that particular domain during the login. So let me show you where exactly we can enable the domain authentication. So that takes us again to the Active Directory page. So before this, I would like to explain what is an Active Directory authentication and how it exactly works. So Active Directory authentication is pretty simple, where it is going to query your domain controller, whichever you are configured in your application, and it is going to check if the password is correct. So it is going to store the password and it is going to check it, and it is going to let you log in if the domain account is correct. So all you have to do is you have to have the domain information added for that particular user whenever you are configuring the Active Directory. So if you go down, you will have the domain information to configure in the user account. So you will have in all the ways, like even if you are importing through AD or LDAP, or if you are adding them manually, you can configure it from here. And if you are going to add the users using CSV, you can also have the domain name imported. So this is important when you are going to have, have the Active Directory authentication or the domain authentication, whichever way you are using. So even for LDAP, we do have an option to enable LDAP authentication. So this is going to help you to log in using the LDAP authentication. So again, it is going to query the Active Directory or LDAP, and it is going to look for the password, and it is going to let you log in, as simple as that. So this is pretty straightforward. So this is more like the local authentication which we have configured here. So all you have to ensure that is the domain name which we are choosing. So you'll have to know which password you are using. If you're using the local authentication password, you can just choose local authentication. And if you are using the domain password, you have to choose the domain whichever you are using to. And you might have questions like, is all the domain is going to be listed here? Will the users not get confused? So yes, we do have a solution for that as well. If you go in under security settings, uh, we do have an option to domain filter the domain controller during the login. So if I save this, you can see on what? Just a minute. Okay, I believe restart is required. So basically, what it will give is like it will go ahead and show only two options, like AD authentication and then the local authentication. So by that, what will happen is the domain name will not be listed over there in the login page, so that whoever doesn't have access to the application will not be able to see the domain information which has been given here. So how it will take the domain? Will directly take the domain automatically from the user's page, which you have configured right in here. So if I'm going to type in Agassi, it is going to find which domain I'm in, and then it is simply going to let me log in. And we do have one more way where you can go ahead and provide the domain name right before the username, and then if you have used AD, the older versions in the Windows 2000 servers, you would have seen this. Like we'll be using this format where the domain name slash the username. Of course, we do use that in attribute in SAM account name, but yeah, that is the way. That is also one way which we can use the username to log in. So this is about the domain name and the local authentication password. So you have to have in mind that the local authentication is enabled. So we do not have any UI way to enable it, but in our global config, like we can simply query our database to enable this. So we do have a table named global config. Let me show you where exactly the value is. I'm sorry. So you see this, we do have a value for a local authentication to be enabled. So this will also help when we are going to talk about SAML. You just remember that we do have an option to enable and disable the local authentication right from the database. So if you would like to modify this value either to true or false, you have to connect to the database directly and run an update query. All right. So and place where you can check is the table global config. All right, this is the way to ensure whether we have the local authentication enabled or not. So moving forward, we are going to talk about another way of authentication. We have seen the local authentication password and the domain password. So it is simple that you can enable it right from here. Which DB is used by managing? Yes, Sham. So by default, we do configure using Postgres. And if you would like to switch to a different database, we do have an option for MS SQL. You can simply change the domain information to MS SQL, and you can have all the information stored over there. But by default, during the installation, in the same directory, we do have a Postgres installation, it is going to act as a default database. Does that answer your question? Yes. Great. Thank you, Sam. And yes, so enabling domain authentication is pretty simple. All you have to do is you're going to go ahead and enable this particular option, and you are going to enable this Active Directory authentication, and it is going to allow you to log in using the AD username and the password. So username is nothing but the username which we are having, the login name which we are giving in the user's page. I'm sorry. So yes, so moving forward, we do have few other features which allows you to log into the application without entering the username and password. Without entering the username and password, which I mean, it is the single sign-on feature. So we do have a AD pass-through, which is nothing but the single sign-on feature using NTLM protocol or Kerberos, I mean NTLM protocol. So if you are in an Active Directory environment, you would have came across this word a lot, Kerberos and the NTLM v2 protocol. So right now we are using the NTLM v2 protocol to communicate between the client machines, the server, and the Active Directory. So what is single sign-on and what is NTLM? If you ask me, I would say is it is the way of authentication which lets the domain users log in using the credentials that they have used to log into their application. So as you can see, I have a Windows machine, and you can see that I have if I'm using ADSS4, it will use this particular username and password which I have used here to log into my computer. So as I say that domain information, so of course it is going to be present in the Active Directory, the login name and the password, the user information. So it is only applicable for the Windows machines. So you have to keep this in mind if you are going to use the ADSS4, AD pass-through. It is going to let you use only the Windows machines, authenticate only the Windows machines. So let's see how this works. So let's see why this is required in this place. Like in most of the environments, we would have different applications we'll be using. For example, let's take our IAM team. They'll be using a Salesforce or like the employee management page or the Active Directory to create the users, and they will have to provide mail access. So there will be different applications, and if you would like to use a common authentication method for the Windows user, whoever is using the Windows domain or whoever is in the domain, collectively in the domain, you can simply go ahead and enable this option. This is going to use the NTLM v2 protocol, and it is going to communicate with this domain controller, whichever you're configuring here. So you would have seen that configure domain controller information in the Windows domain scan. So we do have an option here. Will have to create a computer account because it is going to communicate using a hashing protocol. So let me give you a quick overview how this Active Directory pass-through works, the NTLM v2 protocol. So as soon as if I enable the login page, if I decide to log in using the NTLM v2 protocol, so what it would happen is like it will go ahead and try to fetch the information, fetch the username and the password which we have in this particular machine which we have used to login. So of course you know that the Windows stores the password in Windows manager, like the password manager which we have in the control panel. Of course we can view that. So it is going to get that information, and it is going to send this particular password as a clear text to the server. So there are three entities involved. One is the client, which is going to send the password, and the another one is going to be the server, the application server, the service disk plus application server where you have installed the application. So it is going to send the password because that is where we have configured all this information, right? The client wouldn't know. So it will be sending the clear text, the plain password, and the server will be responding back with a 16-byte challenge, like they call it a challenge. It is like encryption protocol. So what it would do is like it will help to create the hash by using that 16-byte, and it will create a hash over there in the client. It will respond back to that, and once that hash has been created, it is going to send that particular hash back to the server, which is the application server, the HTTP application server, and in the domain controller, when the domain controller, whichever we have configured here in the application, it is going to have an already created hash. So it is going to match this through to information. The hash is going to match between the hash sent by the application server and the domain controller, which is already existing there. And it is going to check after decrypting, it is going to check whether this user is allowed to log into the application or not. And if yes, it is going to let you log in without entering the password, just by having the username and the password which you have used to log into the computer. And again, this is for the machines which belongs to the domain. So let's see how we can configure this in our application. So let me give you a quick overview about it. So I just want to show more insights on this. So I have entered the wrong password here, and there is no connectivity between this instance and my Hyper-V. So it is going to fail. So I'll show you how it will be done. So we have given, or we have entered few parameters here: the domain name, the DNS server IP, the computer account, the bind string, the password, the DNS site. So we know what this is, like by seeing this, we know what this is. But do we know where to get this except the AD admin? So let's assume administrator of this service desk plus application who manages the services plus application is not very sound doesn't have sound knowledge in the Active Directory information. So he should be able to get it easily, right? So we do have a few shortcuts where we can get it. So let's start with the bind string. So the DNS site is, let's start with the bind string. So if you go into the bind string, this is like for the users who haven't used, the Active Directory before. So this is how the Active Directory users and computers page looks like. So all you have to do is, primarily everyone will have read access, but if you do not have read access, you might want to request it to your administrator. So if you click on the forest and if you, the domain, and then if you click on the properties, you will be able to see a name right here. So it is nothing but the fully qualified domain name. So my domain is Agassi, yes, but my fully qualified domain name is agassi.sdp. So that is what I have to configure in the bind string right here. And the DNS server IP, it is going to be a static IP. It is going to use it to communicate, check the connectivity between the application and application server and the domain controller. So how do we find the DNS IP address of it? So it is most of them would have most of them will be familiar with this command, because we would have used this in the troubleshooting steps for the lifelong. But you would have not scrolled down and see this DNS server value. So you see this, we do have a DNS server values added when I have typed IP config that slash all. So I haven't done the DNS configurations. I do not have a DNS server, so it shows the local host. But in the real-time environment, you will have a DNS server, and you would have mapped this particular server with a particular DNS IP address. So that will be listed over here. You can simply copy that and paste it right here. So that is how we fetch the DNS server IP. And DNS site is an optional. You can go ahead and have it configured, or you can just leave it empty. So it is nothing but the site in which it belongs to. So I just have entered the complete fully qualified domain name of the server or the domain controller, whichever I have used. So it is these are the important entities that it is hard to find during the configurations. And we do also have an option to have create a computer account and password. So there are two ways. Of course, there are two ways. You can go ahead and create it directly in the Active Directory, and you can configure that computer account name and the password, and ensure that it should not be placed under any OUs other than the computers. So you can see that there is a computer account that I have configured here. So this is the computer AD account, which is specified right here, and I have entered the password for this. Of course, I have entered it wrong purposefully, and these accounts can be created primarily prior to the configuration. You just can ensure that the account is created, and you can enter the computer account name and the password, or else we do have one another way. So I'm just going to change this computer name. I know that there is no connectivity. I'm going to show the one another way to configure the computer account and the password. So I have entered a computer account which doesn't exist in my Active Directory and under the computer's OU. So it is trying to create. So that loading icon is trying to create the computer account in my Active Directory in the computer's OU. So let's wait for that and see what it gives. Great. So there is no connectivity, of course, but the message which we have to notice is this. So it is going to give you two VBS files, like VB script files. It is going to help you to enable the create the computer account and set the password for that particular computer account. So as you can see clearly, I do not have any computer account created, so obviously it failed. So what I could do is I can simply click here to download the VBS file, and I can use this command to run. Like I can use the C script command to execute this particular VBS file. So that is going to allow me to create the computer account and set the password for that computer account manually. So that is the one more manual way to create the computer account in the application. So mostly if you have configured the admin account, like if you would like to import users, most probably in a secure environment, so you'll be having an admin account. So it will be created in most of the times, but in case it fails for any reason, it is worth to try by creating a computer account and having a password configured manually, because you just have to ensure that these configurations are correct. And you might be wondering why this is not working. So this could be the case. The password might have not set because it has only read access, or the computer account would have not get created. So you can just check that. So it will help you to establish the communication to the computer account. And even if you have configured all this information right in here, you might face issues while doing the configurations. So that is one another tip I would like to give you. So you see the domain name here, right? It says Agassi. So if you see the Windows domain scan, it has captured the information in a fully qualified domain name. So which means it is different from the domain which I am using. Like the fully qualified domain cannot be the prefix. In few environments, yes, it can be, but it depends on the configurations. It cannot be the same as the domain name always. So if you could see me in the server, for me the fully qualified domain name of this server is WinQ. Here I had it, one moment. So you can see that it is the computer name and the domain name. So this is the fully qualified domain name. But in case if you see my logon information, I believe I have to go to. So yes, if you could see the domain name which I have in my prefix, it just says Agassi. So during the configuration, you will have to ensure that this is same as the domain name prefix, whichever we are going to have, because it is going to send a hash by having this domain name in prefix and then the username. So if assume that it is going to send like the AD, the application server is going to send like agassi.sdp slash username, and the AD will find it like agassi.sdp.username, and it will say there is no user like that, there is no domain like that. So in that scenario, you will have to ensure that the domain information which has been given in this prefix is same as the domain which you will use to log into the computer. So this is one thing you will have to notice. So if like if you go under user properties, you can go ahead and directly look at it. If you go under account, see, you will have the logon name like this. So it should be same as the logon name whichever that is present in the Active Directory. Only then it will let you authenticate. And that is how we configure the pass-through for the using AD single sign-on. So by doing this, it is simply going to allow you to enable, it is going to request for the password and it is going to let you log in, or else it is going to simply take the password whichever you have used to log into this particular server. Like you might have, in few environments in the lab machines, this might not work because you will be using the local authentication password. There will be no connectivity to the domain. So in that scenario, this might not work, if you're trying to access the application. So you just have to ensure that that particular computer has access to the domain and it logs in, and its logon name is correct, and the password which it is using is a domain password. So that is about the AD pass through. So it is pretty much like you are just going to get the information from the domain controller and enter it, and then if the computer account is not created automatically, you are going to run the VBS which we have downloaded here, just using a C script command that is going to help you to enable the ADSS for authentication. It is as simple as that. So before I jump into the next big topic, I just want to ask if you guys have any questions regarding single sign-on. Does anyone? Ready, guys? Okay. So I'll take that as I have.
Just one question. Will this process be different for a cloud version?
ADSS4, it is going to, anyhow, you'll have to ensure that the domain control has the connectivity between the application server, and that is going to be the same. So if you are going to use the cloud version, for example, let's assume Azure, so we do have a different way for that, because you do not have to rely on this. We do have a SAML single sign-on. So I think it is Nazia. Nazia's question takes us to the next topic, the SAML single sign-on, which I'm going to explain. So, but yes, of course, for your answer for your question, yes, you can go ahead and configure it. You just have to ensure that, because if you're going to have Active Directory in the cloud, you're just going to ensure. I mean, you're going to have Active Directory configured in a VM. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it is pretty simple. It is just like I'm having in Hyper-V. You're going to have it in Azure cloud. You just have to ensure and enter the information right in there.
Okay.
All right. Yes. So Krunal asked, how can we get the server IP? So Krunal, may I ask if you're referring to the DNS server IP which is here? Could you confirm that? So yeah, it is as I said earlier, it's pretty simple. You are just going to run the ipconfig/all command. So it is going to show you the DNS configurations right in here. See, do you see this? The DNS server IPs. So since I do not have any DNS server in between my Hyper-V and local machine, it is showing like it is localhost, but it will show any other IP address whichever you have configured in your DNS servers. So this is how we get it: ipconfig/all in the domain controller. Great. So yeah, so we have completed successfully the one way of authentication, the single sign-on way of authentication using the Active Directory. And as I said, it is going to use the NTLM v2 protocol, unfortunately, which is only supported in the Windows machines. And obviously, we do have users, we might have users using Linux OS and the Mac OS in the environment. We might want to support the users who are using the Linux environment or the Mac environment. So in that scenario, SAML single sign-on, it is going to help you a lot. So I'm just going to take my other instance for this, because this has connectivity. So yeah, so this is the SAML single sign-on. So what is SAML single sign-on? So as I said, AD pass-through is going to use the NTLM v2 protocol, where the SAML is going to do the browser-based authentication. It is going to exchange XMLs between the server and the IDP, and it is going to ensure that it is going to help you to provide the correct authorization and the authentication for the particular user who is trying to log into the application. So there are three entities involved in the SAML. And I would like to stress on this word. SAML is a browser-based authentication. All right. So there are three entities: the client, the identity provider, which we are going to call IDP from now on, and other one is service provider, which is nothing but our application. So the name itself derives everything. So when we mean IDP, identity provider, it means it is going to hold all the identities. It is going to hold the informations of the user in an application, and the service provider, our application, it is going to communicate with that IDP and ask if that particular user is allowed to authenticate or if he has the right authorization to log into the application. And as soon as the IDP says, yes, he has, and this is his credentials, just go ahead and let him log in. And then our application is going to let the user log in. And between this comes the client, which is the browser. So the browser is the one which is going to hold the session. So as I said, this is XML based, like it is going to exchange the XML data through HTTP posts between the IDP and the ISP, the service provider. It is going to hold that information in a browser cookie. So that is nothing but a session. So that is one another thing. If the session ends, it is going to ask you to log in again. So let me show you one IDP way. So also I would like to let you know that we are using the SAML 2.0. We started with SAML 1 and then it has 1.1 and we do have 2.0 right now. So we are in our application using SAML 2.0. And if you ask what are the identity providers are supported, we do have a list of identity providers that we have tested. One, ADFS, two, Okta, and G Suite. So G Suite is nothing but the Google Suite, where you can go ahead and configure the SAML single sign-on on that. And of course, yes, for the cloud users of the Windows environment, Azure, you can go ahead and have the SAML configured in Azure as well. So without any further delay, so for here right now, for the example, I'm having ADFS. It is a federation service, provided by the Microsoft itself. So I'm going to show you how it can be configured in the ADFS itself. It is how we can establish the communication. As I said, it is going to exchange the HTTP. So we have to ensure that there is communication between the IDP and the SGP, and the client is able to get all that. So I would like to start it with, I just want to explain why SAML, though we have SSO already for the Windows machines. So as I said, it is exclusively for the domain, which is using Linux and the Mac environment. For the Linux and Mac machines, you cannot have a domain password where you can go ahead and the user can authenticate communicating to the AD and then getting the password. That is can be a bit complicated. So in that scenario, you can simply configure SAML. It doesn't care about what OS is if the browser is present, if the browser can store cookies, if the browser can have sessions hold, it is going to let you, it can work in all the ways. That is why we have SAML in place. So to overcome the limitation for Windows machines, that is where the SAML stands alone. So yeah, as I said, it will be exchanging the HTTP protocol. I mean, it's exchanging XMLs between the IDP and the SDP and the client. So it is going to use this assertion consumer URL. Assertion is nothing but it holds something. So this assertion URL is going to hold and then bring the information to the service provider using the AD. I'm sorry, using the IDP. So yeah, so let's see how it can be configured in here. So we can see a lot of URLs. Of course, it is going to be HTTP based communication. That is going to be a post protocol. I mean, it is going to simply use the post methods to communicate back and forth with the XML information. And we do have few of the information. Entity ID, it is a unique ID for each and every IDP. So in each and every service providers, because IDPs can hold multiple service providers. When it comes to IDPs, it can have multiple. It can let you log into SDP. It can let you log into any other Microsoft SharePoint without you even communicating. So how we do that? We will go ahead and configure. It will find it using this entity. So this entity is asking for this credential. So this you might have some users who is not allowed to use SharePoint. So if it finds that he is not allowed to use the SharePoint, it is not going to let him log in. So entity ID is a unique ID. So if you have configured SAML already and failed, if you would like to configure it fresh, you might want to remove or delete that from the ADFS or the any other IDP, whichever you are using, and then you'll have to go ahead and configure it again. You can see that identifier is being listed over here. So that is unique. And next one is the assertion URL. as I said, so as soon as it receives the IDP information, it is going to take you to this URL. So this is assertion URL is going to contain the information in that session. So it is going to hold the information over there. And logout service URL, of course, you'll have to have a login and logout URL, right? When it is an authentication, you have to ensure that the user is able to log in and he's able to log out as well. And yep, so we do have SP certificate file. As you can notice, the certificate file is required, so you should be running the application in HTTPS, right? And so this is the metadata.xml. So this is one easy way of configurations that is given by our application to configure it in the IDP. So what you can do is you do not have to go ahead and import it. I mean, you enter each and every information. Whereas assertion, you do not have to do that. You can simply download this metadata and then import it directly into the IDP. So does anyone have a question?
Akasi, Rohit this side. So the when we are sharing the service provider details with the IDP, so there we should also need to provide the what all the attributes we need from IDP. So what all the attributes we need to share? Like if we see for ID, we have decided few of the attributes we are taking from AD, like first name, last name, something like that. So what all the parameters do we need from IDP for authentication?
Correct, Rohit. That is a good question. I'll be talking about the climb rules once I am into the ADFS. Just let me explain. Yeah, that we will discuss in a bit. Yeah, we will see what are the parameters and how we can configure that. So yes, and we do have Anil here asking how can we use multiple SAML SSOs for authentication. As I said, you cannot have different SAML configurations. This is for this one application, and for different domains, different SAML authentication cannot be done. Basically, it is like the domain information that you're configuring it. It is a global information, so you have to ensure that the users are imported into the AD. So you can't have multiple SAML IDPs configured in the application. That is the answer for that. It is only one IDP that you can have. Am I clear? Great. Yes. So yeah. So we were talking about the metadata.xml. So it is pretty simple, where you do not have to go ahead and copy information and paste it over there. You can simply import the metadata into the IDP and you can start configuring it. And also, this is the important part. We have to ensure that we are configuring the correct login URL and the logout URL. And this is going to be the algorithm, the signing which it is going to use, that can be seen right from here, the signature and the certificates. So as soon as you configure ADFS, you will be having all this information, the certificate information. We just have to ensure that we are configuring the right certificate in here, and you'll have the certificate information, everything right in here. So yeah, this is the configuration that needs to be done in the application N, in the service desk plus N. Let me show you how we can configure it in the IDPN. So I'm going to use ADFS completely. So if you are using any other IDPs like Okta or G Suite, you might want to see our videos, tutorials. Like we do have a help URL. So I'll go ahead and drop that in the chat as well. Like if you would like to do it. So I'm going to show you how this can be done in ADFS. It is a federation service provided by Microsoft itself. So yeah, when it comes to an IDP and STP, to establish the connection, always we'll have to build a relationship, the trust relationship between the IDP and SDP. So under trust relationship, we will be having the relaying party trust. So here we will have all the user information. I mean, like the SP's information, service providers information. So we can go ahead and import multiple. So we can have ADFS configured in multiple applications, and all of them can configure right in here. So just for example, I have already a domain added. I mean, like a service provider added. I'm just going to show you how to add a new service provider. So you can see, as I said, you can have the URL typed in manually, the URL where we can get the information from, like a common place where the metadata is, or you can download the metadata and import it. So I have the XML right here downloaded already. I can simply go ahead and import it, or I can use the manual way of importing the application. It acts according to that. So the correct, I mean, like the most usual way is importing the metadata file so that you will not miss any information, and you do not have to worry about if you are entering the correct information. You can just simply click on next, and I'm just going to name it as SDP. I'm just going to permit all. So this is where you will permit users to allow login to the application, or you would want to deny the users to log in. Yeah, this is what I wanted to show. As I said, this error is because of the identifier, the entity ID, which I was showing. It is a unique ID. So ensure that you are configuring the service provider's information correctly. Like it should be the unique value. You cannot have same identifier for multiple users. So yes, so we cannot proceed further on this. So this is how we input the XML, and once we click on next, it is going to add that, and it is going to be there like here. So yes, now we get back to Rohit's question. So now we have established the trust. Now we have shared the certificate. We can get the certificate from here. So we are just copying the token signing certificate, and we can simply import it right here. We can do it right away. But we can establish that is just the part of trust establishing. We have established the trust, and how we can go ahead and have the parameters shared. So as I think someone has a question, how to get metadata file. Yes, Akshay. So as I have told, it will be present right there in our SAML configuration page. So this metadata information will hold all the information of the application, whichever you need to configure in the application. If you can just click on that to download, just like that. Clear, Akshay? Great. Yes. So yeah. So this is how it is going to look. So we have established the trust right now. We have shared the certificates. We have imported the metadata.xml. So our ADFS knows that I'm going to serve this guy. So we have to tell him how it is going to share, or how it is going to exchange the communication. So it is going to be in the XML based, right? It is going to send the data over back and forth. So how it is going to do that, and how we know that what data that needs to be sent from the ADFS to the service provider, that is HDP. So we do have something in place called climb rules. Here is where you will tell the ADFS to send this particular information, because there will be lot of information that will be using the AD attributes. In the AD attributes, you might have um, even the salary information. Maybe you would have added an attribute which we do not require in the services plus application. So what you have to do is, like, you have to ensure that you're providing correct information from the active directory to the active directory to the services plus. So how do we do that? So I have a climb rule configured already. I'm just going to show you how we can start, as a fresh to start. So we do have various ways of creating a climb rules. If someone has done this earlier, they would have known that we can use the default AD attributes, and we can modify the incoming climb rule, and also we can have a code. Like I'm just going to show. I'm not going to configure this. So this is going to allow you to. I'm sorry. So pass through is like it is going to allow you to configure the AD using AD language. Like the SAML has a certain language to create the climb rules. I'm just going to show how it is done. I'm sorry. Okay, it is a custom rule, I believe. My bad. Yeah. So we have a custom rule here. So this helps you to create. It is like a simple bit of coding. Like for the people who doesn't want to get into the interface and get confused, you can simply go ahead and configure a custom rule. It will look like a URL and the value after that as a parameter. So by this, you can send the right parameter to the rule. Like most of the guys who work with ADFS will know this custom rules. But we do have in ADFS, we do have an option to use the default attribute that is present in the application itself. So you do not have to worry about that if you do not know that specific language. So as you can see, I have selected the send the LDAP attributes as client. So that is the default one. It is going to have the LDAP attributes, of course. So I'm just going to name it as login IDs 2, something like that. So the attribute is Active Directory. Of course, I'm using Active Directory in my ADFS. So I have, during the configuration of ADFS, you will see the integration between the ADFS and the Active Directory. So once after it is done, it is going to show the attribute store. Attribute store is nothing but which has your information. IDP is also another application, right? So imagine if you are using a G Suite, how does it know all your information? So that is by mapping the attribute store, so that it will collect all the information from your Active Directory and have it right there. And what will happen is you can map the LDAP attributes. So these are the list of LDAP attributes that is present in my Active Directory. And what we require is the SAM account name. SAM account name is nothing but the login name. So, and I'm going to map it to the name ID. So I believe Rohit would have got his answer by now. Rohit, do you understand which parameter we need to map?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So it is the SAM account name which we need to map it with the name ID, and in view of the environments, they would not want to map the SAM account name. I have seen cases where they would do not want to have the SAM account name. Instead, they will be having a different attribute which has the domain information and the the SAM account name, and they will create a custom rule. So it is up to the environment, whatever they want to say. So this is completely depends on the IDP, and so all you have to do is the right information is being passed to the application, that is the SP, that is the SDP. So if the name ID is mapped, it is going to find, okay, the SAM account is going to be the login name of the application. So if the SAM account, if the login name is already present in the application, let me log in. So it is as simple as that. I have this rule already, so I'm not going to save it. So you can see that I have done the exact same thing already here. And yeah, so if you would like to have a clear insight on the rule, see, you see this view rule language. So this is the way of coding that we will be doing to configure the ADFS using a custom rule. So you can, as you can see, that there is a HTTP request, and it is having the issuer, that is AD authority, that is nothing but the parameter, the attribute store which we have chosen. And you can see the store types, and these are that parameters that we are going to pass with the URL. And it says get the SAM and then pass the value. As simple as that. So this is how it is going to send the information. So this is, I'm showing it in a different language, but this is what exactly it will do in the backend. It will just get the SAM account information, and it will go ahead and send the information to the service provider. So if you could go ahead and see this, so here we have. So it is going to send this login ID. As simple as that. So yes, so by sending this, it is going to find, it is going to parse, of course, it is going to have a redirect URL. This is the custom consumer URL. It is going to carry that password and the username, and it is going to say that, hey, this user is trying to log in. Would you want to allow them in? It is going to see the list of users on the application which we have already imported, and it is going to let you log in. So I have a question for you, and the answer is right in the screen. I would like to know what happens if the user account is not present in the application. The answer is already on the screen. I'm not going to change the screen. Let's see how finds it. My question is, what will happen if the user is not present in the application already? It is like a new user is trying to log in. New AD user is trying to log in using the IDP credentials. Anyone?
Akasi
think-
will created.
Yes, correct. And we do have a setting for that. So this is something we have to keep in mind when it comes to the configuration, ADFS or the IDP configuration, because it is going to create a new user. So imagine if the user is not present in the application and it is not finding that particular user, it will be in cycle. It will go ahead and find, okay, user is not present, create new one. It will be in cycle. It will end up creating duplicate accounts. So for that, to have a check mark on that, we do have an option called application. So if you go to application settings, you can find the dynamic user addition. So this will help in many ways. Like if you would like to create the user during request creation, if this is enabled, it is going to let the user create it automatically. Or if some user sends email to the application, and if the user account wants to be created, this is going to let you create it. But when it comes to SAML, if the user account is not present, of course it is going to create new one, but it is not going. Imagine you again and again, if the user is getting created, you will have duplicate users, right? So if, for example, you might have changed the login ID for all the users in the application, so it is going to have a different set of users duplicated. So it is going to find it using the login name, the SAM account name, or the whatever the value that you have mapped in your claim rules. So it is going to check that with the login name, and if it is present, it is going to let you log in. Else, it is going to create it as a new request. So this is one thing which you have to ensure about this. And let me show you how a login page looks like for SAML. Someone has a question. What happens if you already duplicate users in the application? Nice question, Anil. So we do have a feature to merge users. So based on the information, you can simply go ahead and select users and merge them. All right. So of course, once it is merged, you will be not able to unmerge it or something. So just ensure that you are, you are merging the correct user account. All right. Does that answer my question, Al? I mean, your question during authentication. If you already, so as I said, it is during authentication, if it is going to merge or override the user information, it is basically on the login. And I mean, like, if it is going to override the information, of course it is during the import. And during the authentication, it is not going to merge the user. If the user is present, it is going to let you log in. So it is like it will go ahead and check. It will go parse through all the users, the list of users, the login IDs and the domain names. If the login ID and the domain name matches, oh, okay, I find this user here, and it will let you log in. It will not go ahead and add a new user if it is not present. So in that case, it is not going to create a duplicate account, right? Of course, the login ID and the domain is present, so it is going to let you log in. And when it comes to the user is not present, the merged or the duplicate will happen when the user is not present in the application. And if the user is already present in the application, and if it is seeing the same value in that, it is going to let you log in. As simple as that. For example, I have created a duplicate user named Agassi, and SAML, in the SAML also I have the same SAM account name as Agassi. And if it wants to log in, it is straight away, it will find already the duplicate user exists, which means the user already exists. It is not going to duplicate it. It is simply going to let you log in. Is that clear? So if the user is already present, even if it is a duplicate user or the original user, it is going to find the login ID and the domain name, and it is going to let you log in. Was that clear, Anil? Which ID? It is going to be the login ID, which I have been saying it from the beginning. It will check for the login ID and the domain information. Okay, as I said, I think you haven't seen the earlier stage of steps we did. So it will not let you create multiple user account with the same login ID. So you see that login with the same name already exists. So which means either there is the original user or the duplicate user with different login information. So let's say my login ID has been changed by the administrator, the AD admin from Agassi Avinas to Agassi. So there, I'm going to hereafter I'm going to log in using Agassi. The Agassi Avinas is going to be the duplicate account, and the Agassi is the original account. So whichever the login ID we are going to use, so the duplicate and the original ID cannot be the same login ID. That is what I mean by the example. Are we clear? If the login ID is different, then it is a duplicate ID. Same user with different login ID is a duplicate user. It is like one user is having multiple user accounts in the AD. Yeah, I hope that clears your question. So as I said, Yes, we were talking about the ADFs and the configurations, and as I said, it is going to share the data, the information, I mean the XML information between the IDP and the SDP. It is basically like it is going to send your data in XML encrypted, since it is HTTPS encrypted XML, send it to you using the assertion URL. Once I have received it, I'm going to check, go through the value, the XML that has been received, and I'm going to see if the value required is present in there, the login ID, domain, the password is present in there, and I'm going to let you log in. So while talking about the ADFs, I wanted to talk about the two ways of authentication. Primarily we do have two ways of authentication where you can directly go ahead and IDP and the service provider. So first you will log into the IDP, and then you will log into the account, for example. So let me show you that. So first let me talk about the uh, like SSO, I mean SP based login. So through a service provider. So it is obviously going to be browser based authentication. So you just have to authenticate. So what I'm going to show is like this is how the user login page looks like. Here with login using SAML. So if the user clicks on this, it is going to take you to the login page. So it finds that I have already logged into the application. So I think the browser session is still there. So this is you remember the climb rule that I have created. So I'll simply click on go, and it will take me to the application. As simple as that. So when it comes to SSO, most of them doesn't want to go ahead and click on ADSS for always, like the sign in using SAML, because most of them will not know what SAML is for the end users. Imagine if users from finance is accessing that. You do not want them to tell that click on login using SAML. So for that, what we have to do is we have to disable the local authentication. So can anyone tell me from which table we disable the local authentication? We have discussed this earlier. Let's see how it is reached you. Any idea which table it is? Right, or else how do we do that? Any heads up?
Global config?
Yes, correct. I don't know who answered that, but that is the correct answer. So using the global config table, we are just going to run an update query and then make that particular table value as false. So by doing that, what it is going to do is it is not going to show you this login page. So that is how we log out of SAML. So this is not going to show you this page. It is showing because the local authentication is enabled. If it is disabled, it is going to simply go ahead and let you log into the application. As simple as that. As soon as you type in the browser, the URL of the service provider, it is going to communicate with the IDP and then come back with the data information and then let you log in. As simple as that. And we do have one more way to discuss about the IDFS or the SAML authentication, which is IDP based. So now you have seen that I have used the browser URL, the application URL, whichever I have configured here. So let's assume I'm going to use the login URL directly. In most of the organizations, just to ensure that login using SAML is happening, what they will do is they will have using a group policy, they will deploy that particular link as a default link during the startup, so that what will happen is whenever the user loads the browser, it is going to show that particular URL, and the user is obviously going to log into the ADFS, and then it is going to populate the other entities, other SPs without asking for password. So that is one efficient way which you can make the user feel like there is not that much password to remember. So I'm just going to show how the IDP based login is done. For the IDP based login, we are just going to load the login URL. So I'm just going to sign out and load this again. Come on. Yeah. So if you see this, it is going to ask for authentication. This is the only authentication that is going to ask, which is logging into the IDP first. So when you have logged into the IDP, like in the later versions of ADFS or Okta, we have an option to display the list of applications that is being that will let you log in using the ADSS. So, I mean, SAML based login. So in that scenario, you can simply log into that, and we will see the list of authentication, I mean, list of applications that will let you log in through SAML, and you can simply click on that, and it is going to take you to the application. And the only disadvantages of SAML is in few environments, if you close the browser window, the session would get closed immediately, or if you delete the cache or cookies, you'll have to authenticate again. So if you know, in environments whichever you do not want to store the browser cookies or something like that, you might face issues using SAML, but rest SAML will work as a charm. So this is the one efficient way which will allows you to log into the application irrespective of the OS flavors, irrespective of what are the different types of computers you are having in an application. So just by using SAML single sign-on, you can handle all of them, just the browser-based authentication. So yeah, so the key point to remember in this is like, because this will be more annoying when we have a lot of duplicate users that has been created. So you just have to ensure that particular user is not logged in. I mean, that particular option is enabled so that it will show error instead of creating new user over that. So I mean, that particular option disabled. I'm sorry, the dynamic user addition should be disabled. Yeah, that is about the SAML single sign-on. That is all I had to talk about the SAML single sign-on. May I ask if you have any questions regarding this? If you would want to know what are the different providers which we have tried, you can go ahead and we have used Okta, G Suite, ADFS, and Azure ADFS, as I said. Yeah, you can make use of that. All right. So I believe there is no question in this. I can proceed with the next. Then I'll take that there is no answer. I mean, no questions for that particular part of our training, and we can proceed further. Yeah. So yes, so we were talking about the authentication methods, and without like the password policy, we cannot complete the authentication method. So for the local authentication password, whichever we are setting in the application, so if you do not, you cannot catch up where the local authentication password is configured. So here you can if you do not want, if you want to enforce a password policy on that, you'll have an option for that as well. So you can enable this, and you can set the own criteria for whichever. Well, it depends on the organization completely. So if you would like to have the password expired, or if you want or have that particular manage the length of the password, um, yeah, if you do not want the users to reuse the number of old passwords, that all can be done right from the password policy page, and it is under security settings. That is about it. So now that we have configured, we have covered most of the part in the authentication. So now we are going to talk about the authorization. So the first question comes. So what is authorization? So what is the difference between authentication and authorization? The simple answer which I give every time is like, does all the technicians or does all the users allowed to see all the information present in the application? Obviously no. So that can be handled using the right authorization methods. So I would like to start with the basic ones. So we do have an option where we can go ahead and have the authorization setup, and I would like to let you know that the authorization is specific to instances. So you might want one of the user, I'm not sure who that is, but someone have raised question that if it is going to be the administrator for across all the instances, right? So no, because one administrator cannot be the person who is managing IT admin cannot manage the facility as well. So there got to be different administrators. So the IT guy who manages the IT environment is a user for the different instance, for the facility instance. If AZ is not running, IT cannot do anything. So in that scenario, that guy is a user in the facility instance. So how do we manage that? So for as the first part, I hope I have already shown that to you, like inputting users. Let me show that again. So you have to ensure that the right users are using the right are in the right environment. So if it is going to be travel, of course you would want all the users to be imported. So you would have seen that I have imported users by clicking on all the users to be imported, or else if you would like to import users specific to the department or the site, you can do that as well. That can be configured as well, and that is about like managing bringing in users that is specific to that particular instance. As you can see, uh, let me show you. I had a login page, right? So this is the admin page. So let me log in using SAML. So why do I see only two instances? Because this user has been only added to this particular two instance. He's not added to all the instance. If you go ahead and see in the admin page, I think I have it in the master. Yeah. If you go ahead and see it in the admin page, yeah, I'll show it right from the Hyper-V itself. So you can see it's a domain authentication I'm doing. Yeah. So if you go under this, I have added this user into only this instance, and one another is the HR instance. So if you go to HR, only in these two instances I have added that particular user. One that is why he is visible. Only those two portals are visible in during the login. So by this we can ensure that the right user is having access to the right portal. Since we have different instances involved, we do not want any other user to log into the finance instance and go ahead and get access all to that. So when it comes to finance instance, of course you can go ahead and have a separate instance, separate portal, and you can go ahead and configure all separate configurations and have it right over there. So that is about the having unique bringing in right users into the right instance. That is the in a nutshell we can say about that. And once after bringing in the users, still we are not sure if the users are if the users are allowed to see all the information. So for that we do have a configuration. So let me show that. Yeah. So for the users, you can see you can set the configuration like one if they are allowed to see only their own requests, or all their department requests, or all their site requests, or all the requests which is present in the application. So this can be configured for the users. And one or else if you would like to have this is for the users to see what are the informations, but we do have also have technicians. So let's go ahead and see how we can configure user as a technician. So you do see a little icon here, changes technicians, a button here. So by doing this, only once you click on changes technician, it is going to let you provide roles. So what are these roles which is present in the application? So this allows the technicians to have right authorization to the right modules. So there could be a technician who's not allowed to run reports, who is allowed only to access the request. So in that scenario, you can simply go ahead and configure this roles right here. So it is pretty simple, where you can go ahead and simply enable and disable the check marks. So let me just do this. I can see that all of them are disabled. So if I provide the complete access to the request, it is going to enable it for all the sub requests, sub access. If when I mean complete access, it should have access to add request. It should have option to edit or delete the notes, run the script. So but if you would like to disable that, you can simply go ahead and do that. You can simply go ahead and disable this particular option. So this will allow you to ensure that the technicians are seeing the right information. So the most predefined thing that will help you is this. In any environment, allow technicians to view. So when we have a technician, like you will have to ensure that he is seeing only the request which he is supposed to see. We might not want a hardware guy to check whatever is happening in the environment, like network or whatever is happening in the firewall. So in that scenario, you can go ahead and set the specific access that he has to have in that particular environment, like all requests are all in associated sites, or only for the groups associated groups and the technician which has been assigned only to him. all that can be configured right in here. Just the radio button can be enabled, and of course, you know that we do have asset module, which we'll be talking on Wednesday. So we do have an option to scan machine. So if you would like to provide access to the technicians to scan those machines, you can simply go ahead and enable this. So just by enabling this, it is going to add, you can simply go ahead and add the roles. After enabling this, you can save it, and that particular role is going to be displayed over here, and it can be added and it can be saved one. So during the login of that particular technician, it is going to allow that particular technician to view only that particular information. So as you can see here, we do have few predefined roles as well, like the AE remote control role, which might come as a question in your third day. I might ask which remote control or which role should be added to have remote control access for the technician. So yeah, you can remember that. And also we do have help desk config role and SD admin role, which will eventually provide uh, access to all the modules and all the configurations that is present in that particular instance. And SD coordinator role, it is going to provide the role whichever is required. And then we do also provide SD site admin role. It will provide only access to that users, like configuration that belong to that particular site. So that is about the predefined roles that we have here. So this coordinator and this help desk config can be assigned to the technicians by default, because it is going to have the basic authentication for the users, so that they can simply go ahead and configure it for the initial purpose. In the later part of the time, while accessing the application, you might feel like specific access is not required for specific technician. You can simply go ahead and disable that, and that is going to help you right away. And also we do have two groups for classifying users, like the user groups and the support groups. So user groups is nothing but the requester groups. The requesters who are, this might look simple, but you can use this in various ways, where if you would like to show an announcement on the home page, or if you would like to show the solution to any specific set of users, you can classify them based on the department, site, email address, job date, job title, and the name. So by doing this, it is going to have a user group creator, and this user group can be used in various places. As I said, solutions, I believe Armum will be showing you tomorrow about the solutions, how we can go ahead and add the solutions, and we can have provide access to the users. So this is a little bit heads up about that. Like you can have a requesters group. So hey, I want to make an announcement to the finance team, like saying them that payroll has to be released, something like that. So you can simply go ahead and while creating the announcement, right? You can simply go ahead and ensure that this particular group is chosen, so that you will know that it is being viewed by that particular user who is supposed to view it. So you can add announcement as well. So here you will have the requester groups, as I said, finance. You can simply go ahead and do that, and it will be displayed on the homepage of all the finance teams. Yeah, that is about the user groups, and we do have support groups. So more than user groups, support groups plays a vital role. So as I think I haven't exited the technician page, so I did it. One moment. Let me go back to the technician page. Let me take this. So as you can see here, we do have, as we had roles, I cannot assign roles to myself because it's admin login. So we do have groups. As you can see, these are the support groups which are present in our application. When I mean support groups, it is maybe also called as technician groups. So technician groups is nothing but where we have classified the technicians, like this guy has to handle the hardware, this guy has to handle the network. So by doing this, this will help us to assign requests are by enabling the roles, simply like the user is only the technician is only allowed to view the group, the request which belongs to this group. You can simply go ahead and configure that. So by doing this, only the technician will have only access to the request that belongs to this particular group. And how do we ensure that this user is added to the group? You can do it either from the technician's page, or else you can go ahead and edit the group. SD admin can do that. Edit the group, and you can simply go ahead and add the technician. You can just simply move right to this. So by doing this, it is going to help you to add the users to the group. directly, or else you can simply go ahead and do that from the technicians page. As simple as that. So this is all about groups. Groups are about providing right authorizations to the users. So for example, so that the technician who belongs to the hardware team will not have access to the requests which is in the network group, so that we can ensure that. By moving forward, that so you would have noticed when I go to support groups and when I go to any other place, you can see that there is information like default settings for. So what is this for? This is nothing but the site. So one thing that you would have noticed that during the AD import or during the CSV import, we can import the site and department information as well. So by importing the site and department information in this page, just take a quick look on that. You can see that there is no configuration that can be done. So it is like, okay, this is a site that has been imported during the Active Directory. But if you go to the admin page inside the instance, and if you go to sites, and if you choose the same site, you are going to see the different configurations that can be done. So during the first configuration, we will consider a specific site as a default site, and we will have configurations like operational hours, holidays, leave types, everything for that specific site. And if you would like to refer to that site, so we do have the three different methods of getting that site information, like copy the default setting site. So copy is nothing but you're going to just get the value, and later part, if you would like to change it, you can simply go ahead and change it. Refer is going to refer it to that particular settings always. So when I choose that particular site, it is going to say that always it is going to look for it is not going to have separate configuration. You will not be able to edit it. It is simply going to refer to that particular default setting. So let's assume Chennai is my default setting, and if I'm creating a site called Tenkasi, and if I'm referring to that particular site, Chennai, whenever I click Tenkasi, it is going to say that it is referred to that particular site. So let's see a quick example on that. So operation hours is also site dependent. So I'm just going to choose Japan office. So you see that it is referred to the default site settings. So even if I click on OK, it is going to stay at default settings. It is not going to take me at the Japan office. So whatever changes I make in default settings, it is going to be applied to the Japan as well. So that is about the refer settings. And copy settings is nothing but you can have this settings copied from that specific site, but let me show you that in real time. So let's take Japan office and make it copy default settings. So if I go under operational hours, Japan office has the default configurations, yes, but if you would like to change it, I can very well go ahead and change it. It's not going to stop me from changing that. So that is the copy settings. It is going to get the value, but if you would like to change it, you can change it, yes. And the third one is the custom settings. Custom settings is nothing but it is not going to refer to anything at all. It's not going to copy any value. There is going to be some values. If you would like to change, it is going to act independent. So for example, I believe someone has a question. I have a query about operational hours and holidays. Is it possible to set different SLA for different technician? How can we different SLA? Okay, yes. So Krunal, I believe SLAs will be discussed by Armugam in the later part, but I would like to show you that SLA is also the site dependent, and while configuring SLA, you will have an option to choose whether it should consider the operational hours or not. So if you have a request that needs to that needs to run on the SLA, which doesn't have which should not apply on the business hours. You can simply go ahead and enable this if it is going to be 24/7, and if you would like to enable it without considering the business hours, you can. This is going to help you with that. So it's a simple icon. Like you can go and enable it. You're just going to say whether the SLA should imply on the business rule or not. I mean, the business hours or not. Business hours, which I mean operational hours. Am I clear, Kunal? Yeah. Yeah. You have that settings right in the service level agreements. Maybe Armu will go deeper into that tomorrow. Yeah. Where we left. Yes, we were discussing about the custom settings. So it is like the independent settings. So you do not have to have any separate configurations. You can simply go ahead and have the independent settings configure, which is the custom settings. By doing that, you can have a separate thing. So for example, if I'm opening a new office in like US and I have to have separate configurations, I can do that as well by using the custom settings. And you might be a bit surprised about this. Yeah. So you cannot refer or copy the information of the department. So department is something which you need to do it manually through all the sites. So if you're having different sites, you have to ensure that that particular department is entered. So if I click on any site, you can see that it is not referred to anything. It is not copied to anything. It will have the unique information. So when it comes to departments, it is site dependent, yes, but you cannot copy the values from the default setting. That is about, because it is obvious, right? You might have HR environment in Chennai but not in the Tenkasi. You might have only technical department in the Chennai, so I mean Tenkasi. So in that case you can have a unique separate departments for each and every site. So of course the holidays is going to depend on the default settings. So instead of going to that, I can show you right from here. So these are the information that is going to site dependent on the site information: operational hours, holidays, technicians, support groups, business rules, and service level agreements. Business rule is also an important topic, which Armugam will be discussing later tomorrow in the tomorrow session. First off, he'll be discussing about that. Yeah. So that is pretty much about the classifications, like the user groups and the support groups, and the roles. Yeah, that is a pretty important topic. You might want to make use of that whenever you're implementing it. So before I jump into the next topic, I would like to know if you guys have any questions. Anyone? Okay, it looks like I was more clear. Okay, thank you guys. And yeah, so we are going to move to the next part, which is mail server settings. So we do have various modes
Hi,
of
Abhyathi, this is Jay. You have another 20 minutes to go.
yes, Jay. Yeah, I'll take care of that.
Hope you're looking at the clock.
Yeah, yes, Jay. Yeah, I will not take more time. Yeah, I'll keep it in time. Thank you. I believe this is the last topic I need to discuss,
Okay,
so
that's
I'll
great.
keep in time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Abhyathi.
Thank you, Jay. So yes, so it's like we are nearing the end, and yes, we do have mail server settings in place. Um, Maybe, yeah, what is mail server setting? So we do have different ways of request creation. User can log into the portal, or else they can simply use the chat which is available in the application, or else they can drop an email as well. So the most easiest way, the most preferable way by the users across the globe is like they will be just dropping an email and it will get converted into the request automatically after a while. So if you look into this, we can see that it is a pretty easy configuration. We have that everything right there in the screen, like the authentication type, the server name, the username, and the password. So we'll have the email address as well. So I would like to show a quick. HTML is an open source, but I would like to show quick configurations that I have done. So this is how pretty much all the mail accounts will look like. Even if it is a O365, you are going to have a list of mail accounts, and that needs to be enabled for the users to access it from anywhere. So similar to that, the mail server which you have configuring here should be accessible and are accessible from the SDP server. So which SDP server, which I mean the application server where you have installed the application. So I'm just going to stop fetching to show what are the configuration that has been done. So we do have various protocols here to configure mail server settings. So most familiar way is like we can use pop IMAP, POPS IMAPs, and you can also use EWS. Like in the Exchange environments. If you are using the Exchange mail servers, you can simply go ahead and have Exchange mail servers configured, and you can ensure that this particular this particular configurations, whatever you are doing here, is accessible from the server, from the application server. So for example, if you are using a POP protocol, you should be able to ping this particular server from the application server using this telnet, using this particular port. You can ping it by ping and see if it is reachable, and you can use the telnet command to see if that particular port is in listening state. So by doing this, we can ensure that this application, we have the communication between the application server and the mail server, and we can simply have the username and the password configured here. So this username and password is the mailbox account. So let me explain, let me give you an overview about how it will work in the real time. So we will have a mailbox, of course, and that mailbox needs to be configured here. So the users will be sending mails to this mailbox. So here I have, this is the SDP mailbox which I have here, and you can see that it is empty because whenever a user sends mail to the SDP official mail address or whichever the mailbox which I have configured here, it is going to fetch the information. It is going to convert it as a request, and it is going to delete it from the mailbox. That is the reason it is empty for me. So as soon as it has been created as a request, it will go ahead and delete it, and it will set the flag as deleted, so that that particular mail, even if they send a new mail, it will be considered as a new mail, or with uh, the delimiters and the subject, it will be added as a conversation. So that is about the incoming mail server settings, where you need to ensure about the IMAPs and the protocols and the port numbers. You have to ensure that it is reachable, and it is a EWS. You will have a EWS connect URL. You can just run it from the browser, from the application server, so that we will know if you have the configuration. And if you go to the outgoing settings quickly, we do have SMTPS and the EWS as well. So SMTPS is widely used protocol, to send emails. Of course, you can go ahead and configure the username and password here as well. And the mailbox is nothing but the mailbox which we are configuring it. This is the mailbox account. So by doing this, it is going to send the email to the requester from this email address. And there is also, we can have alias email address. So we can have a alias email address configured for the primary email address. So whenever a mail is sent to the alias address, it is again going to be sent to the mailbox, the primary mailbox, and it will be fetched and created as a request. But we can have the two information at the alias information. So by doing this, whenever a user is replying, it will seem like the reply is from this particular alias address. And how I'll show you how we can configure that, because it is one another important topic. So if you go under support groups, if you look into this, you can see the mail group email which we can configure here. So if I have configured the alias address here, so whenever I click on reply, I'm sorry, you have to configure it here in the sender's email. So whenever I click on reply, it is going to show this information which I have configured here, so that this particular, it will look like the mail has been sent from this particular user account. So yeah, that is the main use of alias address. It will help you to send mails. You can also use it for auto authentication. So if you are configured in the group mail right over there, if a mail is sent from the alias address hardware@agassi.sdp, it is going to fetch the information, and it is going to assign it to the group automatically. That is about the incoming mail address. And if you have proxy in your environment, you can enable the proxy as well, because this is something which we have brought in recently. So if you have proxy configurations done in your application, we can have a proxy configured here. And also we can have a spam filter. It is pretty straightforward. So if you do not want any mails from specific email address or with specific subject to be fetched, you can configure it here. The spam filter will not create will not fetch the email from the mailbox. It will not create requests. And this is something which we need to notice, the email commands. So we can set the values to the fields from the mail itself. Like you can have this emails delimiter in the subject, and you can go ahead and add these values. So for example, if I have this requester is equal to guest and send the email, it is going to fetch the information, and it will automatically set the requester name as guest. Yeah. So that is one another thing which we can make use of it. And also I wanted to talk about the delimiters, because this is going to play a vital role. So we do have notification rules in place. So let me show you a mail that has been sent from the application. So if you're sending an email, you can see this delimiter being added automatically. So this helps us to find the right the request ID. So we can find this request ID has been added. So if the email contains this particular request ID, it is going to find that, okay, this is a reply from this particular request, and it is going to append the information. So instead of creating as a new request, because you do not want the request to be recreated whenever a new mail is sent, right? Because we are going to have back and forth communication right from the request itself by simply clicking on reply. So by doing this, as you can see my alias email address is being populated here because it has been assigned to the group IAM, and I have the alias email address configured as a sender's email. And yes, if I send, it is going to send it as the alias email address to this particular requester. And all you have to ensure that is, like, you might have scenarios where all the request is being created as a new request, all the mail is being created as a new request instead of appending as a conversation. That could be because the sender is from the mailbox. Sender from the mailbox is removing this particular delimiter from the subject. So that could be the case. That is something which you would want to notice. And before we wind up, I would want to let you know that we do also support OAuth. So all you might have known, the Microsoft guys would have known that Microsoft is going to end the support for the traditional username and the password authentication globally, and maybe it will be done in mid of 2021. It was planned for 2020. Unfortunately, because of this pandemic, we were not able to. It has postponed it. So here we can simply configure the client ID. So if there are any guys using Azure, you can remember, you can recognize this, that there will be client ID, client secret for each and every app that you're adding in the application in Azure. So you can configure that here, and you can set a redirect URL. So it is going to allow you to communicate just by like, it is going to send tokens back and forth between the application and the OAuth configuration, and it is not going to request for the password. And that is one another thing that you have to notice if you are going to use Azure. So while you are doing the configurations here, you have to ensure that that particular email account username, whichever you are using here, is having admin account in the beginning alone until it establishes the consent. So this is how it works. It will reach the Azure OAuth, and it will say, hey, if I'm able to, do you accept this service provider as uh, like allow to send mails and then mails back and forth for the communication. So it is just like that. Like in SAML, we have received the authentication, right? Trust, establish the trust relationship, right? This is something like that, where we have to establish the consent. We have to get the consent from the admin user. So this account, whichever you are using here, should be the SD admin account that you are going to use. So that should have admin privileges in the Azure. So that is about the OAuth configurations. So I can have a schedule configured here. Which will go ahead and fetch the information based on each and every schedule, and it will get the request created. That is something which you can go ahead and make note of it. And if you'd like to allow request creation with for specific emails, you can enable this. This is going to disable the request creation, and you can specify the email address whichever you want to allow to create the particular request. And for example, if you would like to let certain domain users to create requests, you can simply add a star and then add a domain name right in here, like c.sdp. So it is going to allow users to create. It is going to allow that emails to be converted as request whenever it meets this particular criteria. So that is all about mail server settings. It will be a really helpful feature in our application. So it will help you to fetch emails and create it as a request automatically. It will allow you to send emails. It will allow you to send notifications automatically. So its scope is really high. So mostly this will be the first thing you will be configuring in your application when you start using it. So that is about the mail server settings. And I would like to know if you have any questions on that, and if you would like to have if you want to have any clarifications, like in the configurations and things like that. If I have gone so fast, because we are running out of time, we have 5 more minutes. So I just want to ensure that I answer all your questions. So you can shoot up the questions right now, either in the chat or you can enable a mic. So mail server settings was clear. All right, then I'll take that as a yes, and I'll consider that mail server settings has been explained well. And you can let me know, like in future, if you're going through any settings, and if you would like to explore it, you can go ahead and drop us an email, or you can in future sessions, we'll be discussing this in the later sessions as well, because we do have notification rules and things to discuss. Yeah, if you have any questions, if you have tried it in your environment, and if you have any questions, you can let us know. We can have it discussed. All right. So could anyone confirm that if you have any question, or else we can wind up the session here? This could be the
All right. Yeah, Agassi, thank you so
yep.
much for the session. It was great. I've been listening throughout the time,
Thank
and
you, Jay.
people were very, very interactive.
Yes,
So
Jay.
this is exactly what we are looking at during this training. For the next 3 days, if you guys could be interactive as today, that would really make us to talk more about the technology and the features and the process. So yeah, we got a question here, Agassi.
Yes, Krunal. As I said, the operation hours is based on the site information. It cannot be for the specific technician. So for this, what you could do is you can have a site, and under the site you can have support groups created. You might have different technicians coming in different sites. I mean, different login hours, right? So you can have different sites, and you can have that particular group configured over there, and by that you can achieve that SLA. So, for example, if I'm creating a support group under China site, and I can set a separate SLA for this China site, and if a request is assigned to this particular group under China site, it is going to go through that, and it will follow that SLA configurations. Am I clear? Okay, right.
All right, great. Yeah, Krunal, thank you so much.